Hi, this is Zach Mayer with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Tuesday, the 21st of January. Starting off with the FTSE 100, which is consolidating well after the jump that we had last week and holding on to most of those gains. The support coming in at around 8,500 yesterday, and that's around 20 points higher than the old record that we had back in May. Which was 84.74. So old resistance and new support, a bit of a distance there, which is an encouraging sign. At least while there's no end of day close back below 84.74, looking for the top of that rising trend channel, the black line there at 87.20. That was our previous target. Best case now is up to 9,000 by the end of March, or presumably even sooner than that, the way we are going. Next up is the DAX, and here it's inching towards that top of the rising trend channel there. That's the equivalent of the 9,000 level, 21,200 on the FTSE. And here we've got a situation where we had the gap higher last week, and while we're above the gap there at 20,600, looking for 21,300, maybe as soon as the end of this month. Any pullback hopefully no lower than 20,500, which was the old December resistance. Moving on to Bitcoin, and quite a volatile picture here over the last 24, 48 hours, obviously because of the arrival of President Trump. But what's interesting here is that we're finding support at and just below the 100,000 level and above the rising 50-day line. That tends to be a leading indicator on the upside. RSI also in the upper 50s, which is in a good place. So basically it looks like dips towards the 50-day line. Currently at 98,000 would be places to enter this market, and looking for not only a retest of the best levels, which were up towards 109,000, but also a fresh record, which would be up to a March resistance line projection at $122,000, and looking for that by the end of next month. If we do break down, the rug pull area would be down to the low 90,000, so 92,000 at that red uptrend line from November. Moving along to gold, and still we are reminded of the resistance we got there at 27.50, looking for that end of day close through that level to give us up to 29.40 by the end of next month. Moving along to the pound, which has been trying to regroup. What's interesting here is that the resistance 123.50 was the initial support for January. So while we're below that, then we are still on the bearish tack, and I suppose that was a great place to short the pound again. You can see that the downside there, $1.18, which is the floor of that falling trend channel from the latter part of 2020. And we're looking for that perhaps by as soon as the end of next month, especially given the latest failure at exactly the resistance point that you would have expected. Another RSI failure below the 50 level. That's about the fourth or fifth one that we've had since the beginning of December. Moving on to the stocks, and it's the second appearance in the recent past for ASA, and here you can see we've already identified the rising trend channel. That's been in place since the autumn of 23. That's heading for £1.22, and the latest gap here means that, or suggests that while we're above the floor of the gap at 89 pence, we're looking for £1.22 by the end of next month. Ideally, we stay above initial January resistance at 92 pence on an end of day close, especially given that we're in the run up to a golden cross, probably like a couple of days away from that. The 50 and 200 day lines rising, and we've had an RSI rebound off the neutral 50 area. Moving along to Abrdn, which is not the sort of stock we normally look at here, but interesting that we've got the shares gapping off basically a W-shaped formation there, above £1.42, looking for the shares to head up to £1.61. And that is an interesting setup in the sense that we want to see whether the shares will close above the 200-day line at £1.49 today, or at least sometime later this week. RSI, rather the 50-day moving average rising now, so that does suggest we've got a turnaround situation coming up there. On to Bay Capital, which stolen the old British Airways ticker code, which means I remember it very well. Here we've got a situation where we're going to a golden cross. We've hit our first target there, 8.25 pence at the top of that broadening triangle, and looking for the 12.75 pence level by the end of next month. On to one of the stars of the show in the recent past, which has been Blue Star Capital. And here, after hitting our big target there at 11 pence, we're looking for a second target there at 17 pence. Hopefully by the end of this month, that also fills the gap up towards 14 and 3/4, which looks like a done deal. The other point to note is that we've got the 50 and 200-day lines both rising. We're looking this after an unfilled gap to the upside yesterday. So basically everything positive going on here at the moment in terms of recovery. Moving on to a stock which I thought I'd never look at again, but it's back, BSF, and here we've broken out of that falling wedge which has been in place since February. In fact, we've gapped through the 50-day moving average, which is a strong signal, so it looks as though today's news is serious. Target here initially around the 5 to 6 pence area. That was the resistance back in the summer, and that's valid while we hold above the 2 3/4 pence area. Moving on to Coinsilium, which has had a great update to date regarding sort of Bitcoin treasury strategy, and one would expect the shares now to rebound fully to where they were back at the beginning of last month, so 4 pence plus. End of day close above the 50-day line, and that gap down that we had last week, 3.6 pence, should allow the shares to not only test recent highs, but then head up to the levels that we were looking at for before, so 5 pence, and then up to 7 3/4 pence maybe by the end of next month. On to Cell AI, and another brilliant stock over the recent past. Here up nearly 10% today. Looks like we're going to a golden cross again, V-shaped bull flag as I call it, and bouncing off the first target there at 0.21. We're looking for 0.4 pence by the end of next month, while we're above 0.2 pence. On to Close Brothers, which is again not a type of stock I normally look at, but especially as it's a £368 million company. But what's interesting here are news regarding car loan bodies or companies being let off the hook, and that's helping the situation here apparently. £4.24 at the top of that channel there, and great to see the shares gapping through that the middle of that W-shaped formation, £2.66. Above that on an end of day close, we are looking for decent upside here, so the shares would just rise in the same way as they fell back in October. Moving along to Dukemount, which I covered quite recently. It's the second appearance in the recent past, and here you can see that we've got this rising trend channel base, top of the channel there, 0.06, and it looks as though the shares have found their feet above both the 50 and 200-day lines. The 50-day line already rising, which tends to be a decent signal, and the 200-day line, I suppose if you look at it closely enough, you can probably see that rising as well. So 0.06 there, which represents decent upside from current levels. For Expo was the big autumn Trump trade, but the second one could be Eurasia, obviously with reference to the Ukraine situation. It's not going to be overnight, but according to Trump, it was supposed to be originally an overnight peace settlement, but a few weeks, maybe a few months. But here you can see our initial target there, 3.1 pence, and that's valid while we hold above recent support around 2.4 pence. If you're a fan of the shares looking for greater glories, then that resistance line projection and that channel really would be up to 4 pence, but let's keep it at the lower level, at least initially. The star of the show on the market over the recent past, and it was flagged by the news the company delivered, Fiinu. Basically, it's back to where it started back in early 2023 before the rug was pulled. Still could get up to 18, 19 pence, which is that resistance line projection from back in 2022, and that is valid at least while we're above recent resistance at 10 pence, so the resistance of that day, the 17th of January. Ideally, we stay above that for a 17 pence target. Another stock which was or is a rather unlikely recovery situation is Mindflair. Here you can see that both the 50 and 200-day lines are rising. We've got this positive consolidation above old resistance at 0.9 pence, and the longer we stay above that, greater the chance of at least a move to 1.6 pence, last year's peak. Ideally, there's no breakback below that 0.9 pence area. On to a company which I interviewed yesterday, which is Quantum Blockchain, and here we narrowly missed our big target there, the purple line there, 2.6 pence. Like to see an end of day close back above the second target, or third target I think we had there, at 1.8 pence, and looking for that to then deliver the 2.6 pence plus level by the end of next month. On to the last two. The first one, one of the rather more embarrassing situations in the recent past. Quite a dog, this situation, but looks as though we may have a bit of a turnaround on our hands. W-shaped reversal, quite a nice U-shaped turnaround there, saucer-shaped turnaround there since the end of December. And already, if you believe my line there, breaking the line there at 36 pence, above that, looking for the top of the trend channel there at 48 pence over the next few weeks. Finishing off with a stock which used to be called Graft Polymer, which is a name I liked, and now called Solvonis or Solvonis, which is a name which I don't like quite so much. But here you can see that we've got rising trend channel base, top of the channel there at 0.25 pence. If we can get an end of day close through that, then the next target there would be 0.35 pence by the end of next month. The other point which is positive at the moment is the way that both the 50 and 200 day lines are rising. So that means we're going into a golden cross, which means we are perhaps justified in looking for decent upside from current levels. That's it for me today. More updates tomorrow.